in the comments. Let us know what you thought. Um, uh, do you agree with us that it was a fun movie, or do you think it was a disappointment? Let us know. Next on the chat here, we're going to talk about the Terminator franchise. If you follow my channel before, I'm a big Terminator guy. It's been a really controversial few years for the franchise because the last two movies have been, what's the word for it, a disaster. You've had Terminator Genesis, that was an actually pretty financially okay movie because China pushed it up in a respect that it actually did pretty well worldwide. Terminator Dark Fate, that was released, I think, was that 2018? Could be wrong, 2019 possibly. I think it was 2019. It was a financial disaster, and the franchise at this point is really, I don't think anybody knows where it's going. A lot of people say it shouldn't go anywhere, but generally what I want to speak about is where did this franchise go wrong? How could they mess it up so royally? In my opinion, the first Terminator was a really simple but really still holds up today. Maybe visually they could. I know people hate remasters and they hate people like George Lucas going in and changing and adding stuff after the fact. I think that's a movie that if they fix some of the visuals, maybe reshot a few scenes, it would still hold up a lot. But maybe that's just me talking nonsense. The movie itself still holds up as a great sci-fi horror movie. The sequel, Judgment Day, was a different but faithful, I think, movie. It was a lot more action based. It was a little bit more lighter. Still a lot of violence in there, but you had Arnold Schwarzenegger becoming a big action star. You had Robert Patrick as this amazing villain, and it just was a, even if you prefer the original movie, you gotta admit the second movie really did feel like a home run and possibly one of the best sequels ever made. Terminator 3, for my liking, was a solid sequel. It got a lot of flack at the time, but I think if people were to see where the franchise was gonna go, they'd probably, like I do now, kind of sit and go, Terminator 3 was probably the best sequel since Terminator 2. And then you have Salvation, which was a kind of odd movie that kind of, you had the Christian Bale rant on set that kind of became a thing, really probably nothing to do with the movie, but it kind of set up that maybe this movie wasn't going to be good. I personally think it's quite a bland movie, but not a bad movie. And then the franchise went on to Genesis, which was a really bizarre kind of, it was a bizarre kind of campy franchise movie that was all over the place. You had, attempts of humor that were bizarre. You had changing of the cast, like Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese was bizarre. You had Amelia Clarke, who's an okay actress, but she is not Linda Hamilton. And the movie was weird. It was fun if it wasn't Terminator, because there is a lot of fun to be had. The action's fun, but it's a weird movie with a lot of missteps. And then you have Dark Fate, which, for my money, the killing of John Connor in the first 10 minutes was a bad move. It alienated fans. Tim Miller and James Cameron, some of their stuff, their arguments off or after or on the release of the movie suggested that they had a lot of arguments. Fans didn't like it. The box office was a disaster. My question is, where did it go wrong? How could it go so badly wrong? Why, out of all these sequels, could they not sit down and get somebody that understood the first two movies, or even look at the third movie and say to themselves, that movie was, rehashing a lot of stuff, but respecting the original movies the most of all the sequels. What do you think, JC? You've seen most of the sequels. You haven't seen Dark Fate, the last one. Where do you think they went wrong, and how could they mess it up so royally? And what did you think about the Terminator 3, Salvation, Genesis?
It's a tricky one for me because I haven't seen Salvation pretty much since it came out. I haven't gone back to watch that again.
That probably
Genesis
says
mostly
a
the
lot.
same. because again, I just have personally speaking, like I just have this thing where like I don't really rewatch stuff that I've seen before. But Salvation is definitely not one of those movies that I'm not in a hurry to ever rewatch again.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just think that was just dour. It was a poor attempt at the franchise. I think what is going wrong. Now, I may be wrong here, so please feel free to call me out in the comments. But I think what's going wrong is too many people are being given a shot here at writing a Terminator movie and like trying to deliver that, because the franchise is in an extremely unique position because of the plot of it. Like, it's okay, they can release a bad movie that can still do well in the box office, but because they have the whole time travel part of the entire plot is like pretty much based around time traveling robots from the future coming back to the past to try and alter the course of history, that they can just go back to before the bad movie happens and try and retcon everything that happens in it.
yeah,
And then they make another bad movie trying to do that, another bad movie trying to fix the bad movie that tried to fix the bad movie, and it keeps escalating from there because they can get away with it. Like, they can't just sit down and say, like, okay, we actually have to do a good one of these. I mean, they do eventually, because sooner or later, fans like ourselves are going to get tired of it, and like, well, the last couple were bad, then this clearly has a track record, I'm going to wait for it to come out on a streaming service or Blu-ray or something like that, and not go see it at the box office.
I think that's a big thing.
Tell the production studios that we're not interested in this anymore, and eventually we're not going to get any more.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that you brought up. Sorry, yeah. I think that's a big thing that you said, that they feel they can get away with it, because I think with Star Wars, I know there's a lot of talk in the last few years about kind of toxic fandom, which is a thing that I can kind of understand, but I think it gets overblown with some things. I think fandoms and their kind of rage, if it's, as long as it isn't hateful, I think it's fine. I think if people are really, really passionate and are really critical, that's good by me. Some people might find it irritating to listen to, but as long as it isn't become kind of hatred towards actors and directors and stuff, I think it's fine. But I think with Star Wars, if they do a really terrible Star Wars movie, the fans will go nuts, and they will hold people to that, and they will not want those people back. And in one way, I guess Terminator, that's happened too. But I feel like, as you say, they feel they can get away with it. I don't think there was a pressure in the last three movies to get it right or to see what they've done wrong. You just can't hire just anybody to make a movie to try and recreate what was good about the first two movies. You look at something like even Mortal Kombat. We were talking about Mortal Kombat and how Sub-Zero enters the movie, and him walking down the street and using his powers to fire ice and stuff. Okay, no Terminator is going to be using ice powers, but generally that feeling of this kind of really threatening villain pursuing the good guys, that's what Terminator is all about. It's a very basic element of those movies. The Terminator Dark Fate didn't get that right at all, because the villain himself to me wasn't that threatening. I mean, they felt like, I think they thought they had this threatening villain, but they really didn't. I mean, Robert Patrick was such a great casting, because he done so little, but what I mean is that he didn't do anything flashy. He wasn't. His character didn't have to do anything. Whereas Arnold Schwarzenegger, is such a
it's a real contrast when you look back at Terminator 2. That the idea that like these two robots are going head to head with each other, and yet Arnold, the robot from the first movie, uh, is suddenly having to learn some sort of humanity to him, whereas Robert Patrick is the T-1000. He's coming in and he's acting like super robotic to the point where like he has like he's obviously been programmed with like the mission to terminate John Connor, and you know he nails that role perfectly because he acts so wooden and so stiff, but that's the entire point, is because that's what the T-1000 was programmed to do. Like he's not supposed to be flashy. He's not supposed to. What do you say? Show any like signs of humanity or anything. Only just enough to pass as it if he's in disguise. So like he doesn't. But then again, that wouldn't be Robert Patrick. Then that would be just like the stand-in character that is filling in. So like obviously that's not going to be him playing the role of someone that he's morphed into.
And I think there's a thing about the Terminator 2 especially that it's one of those scenes that I think if any director is trying to make a Terminator sequel, that they should look at this one scene. It's the scene where Robert Patrick and Arnold meet for the first time, I believe, and it's in a corridor. It's in this really simple corridor, and both of them start shooting at each other, and then both of them start fighting each other. And there's no throwing of characters into the sky. There's no. They do smash through a wall. Isn't it a wall, I believe?
Yeah, they smash through a wall. It's in an arcade.
Yeah, but like, there's no CGI. They couldn't do it at that time anyway. If they wanted to, there's no CGI ragdoll stunt car. They don't. No character needs to be thrown through 20 planes of glass out of a skyscraper, landing through buildings. It's just two people on the ground. Two Terminators on the ground fighting each other. It's simple. Even when the T-1000 gets shot, they put tinfoil. I believe it was something like a tinfoil prosthetic thing to show the bullet wound in the T-1000. Simple stuff like that. It wasn't flashy. Then you go and you look at, as I said earlier, when I was talking about Mortal Kombat, you have. In the last two Terminator movies, Genesis and Dark Fate, you have the last 20 minutes are these CGI fests of just lazy. I mean, I like CGI. CGI is amazing. Terminator 2 was such a pioneering kind of start for CGI because people had not seen stuff like that, but it was used minimally. Then you've got Genesis and Dark Fate, where the last two fight scenes, you've got a CGI environment, none of it's real at all. You've got Arnold Schwarzenegger being used as a CGI double, been thrown around, none of it's believable. So my point is, when you look at those first two movies, sure, those movies were lower budget and they had restrictions on what they could do, but no person making a Terminator movie should be getting that far away from having two characters on the ground fighting simply, no overuse of CGI, but they don't seem to get that. Again, as I said, you've seen Genesis. Do you remember the terrible helicopter chase where everything's CGI? The helicopters aren't real. To me, that's a big thing, and the reason why these movies just do not feel like good Terminator movies or good action movies. Yeah,
unfortunately, I do remember that helicopter chase scene for all the wrong reasons.
Because you remember in Terminator 2, the helicopter chase where they actually, the T-1000 drives a helicopter under a bridge, and they actually did that, I believe.
They did that with a stunt pilot, yes.
And then you go to Genesis where it's everything's CGI, everything looks fake. That's a big thing. I just don't think these people understand what they were trying to make.
I don't think so either. But going back to Mortal Kombat again, and I know this is something that we're probably going to end up doing a lot during this podcast, is going back and looking at previous topics. But I forget his name, the director of Mortal Kombat. But I remember reading an interview with him saying like he played a lot of the game
Yeah.
in the arcade, and he had a lot of love for that series, and you can tell that in the way that it's shot, how faithful they are to having real actors and real stunt people doing real fights. There's not a lot of CGI in there, and it absolutely shows through that movie about how much care and how much attention that they're giving it. Whereas Terminator just, I don't know, it just seems very by the numbers now. You almost know what's going to happen whenever you go in, and that's kind of a sad indictment on the movie. It's like, if I know what's going to happen in a 100-hour movie, then that makes me less inclined to, want to spend money to go buy a ticket.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I believe the director of the new Mortal Kombat was Simon McQuaid, or Simon.
Yes, that's name rings a bell
yeah,
now. Yes, that's correct.
he sounds like a guy that he's a guy that understands what he's supposed to be doing, which isn't necessarily going to mean it's going to be a great movie, but it's a starting point that they have somebody that knows how to respect the characters. He's not going to just kill off some big character in the first 5 minutes because he wants to get a reaction. I mean, the killing of John Connor, that was a sign of somebody, a director. You had Tim Miller, director of Dark Fate, saying that I believe him and James Cameron said that they were tired of seeing male action stars be the only thing that people seen. Which I thought, when I heard that first, like, well, okay, you mean bringing back Linda Hamilton is a great thing. She was amazing in the first two movies. But then that came back to haunt me, because they killed off John Connor in the first 10 minutes. They said in an interview that Kyle Reese, who was a big part of the first movie, and a beloved character in the franchise, that he doesn't exist anymore because of what they've done with Dark Fate. So you have these two directors who, I don't like to get into the whole politics thing. I have no problem with female-led action movies, but when you have directors who seem to want to remove male characters because they've got some political reason for doing it, I just think that that's a bizarre thing. That kind of happened in Star Wars with Mark Hamill. Not really the same reasons, but there was a rumblings that they wanted to get rid of older characters because they wanted to get the new characters. It's kind of like wrestling, what we'll be speaking about later. You get rid of the more over guys because you want to get the younger guys over. It's a bizarre... it's a different, completely different medium, movies and wrestling, but for movies, it's really bizarre. Why would you get rid of a beloved character for no reason other than you want to push a new character? I think that's a really bizarre mindset to be in. What do you think?
I want to go back to like what you said like about a minute or so ago about like how Mortal Kombat didn't want to kill a major character in like the first 5 or 10 minutes, and yet Scorpion died.
Well,
which,
but they backed that up.
But like in that case, it's fine. It's a Mortal Kombat movie. People are supposed to die. Like that.
Yeah.
That's like fatalities are the point of the entire game. Like it was built on the shock value of watching fighters literally kill each other on screen.
But in that point, the spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, the Scorpion character does get to return in an awesome way. So they've, it wasn't like they sidetracked that character and dumped him and like, who cares about him anymore? They, they give him a cool return.
Yeah, he does get a cool return arc.
Which John Connor gets no return. John Connor is
he's just
is
super
killed.
dead.
And it's an interesting. People have said to me, well, the John Connor character has been done before, and it didn't really do it. It hasn't worked in Salvation. They feel it didn't work in Terminator 3, and they felt that they had to go somewhere different, but they don't go somewhere different in Dark Fate. They bring in a female character, which, again, I'm not making that's a problem, but this female character is the exact same character, so that they've replaced him with nothing new. they're just redoing and annoying fans by getting rid of that character. Um, and I've lost my
Like I
train of
think there
thought.
could be room. There could
Yeah.
be room in the series for both of them if you have them like I know
Yes, that
that you
I
said
think.
like they're similar, but like you can have them play off each other and create a completely different dynamic there.
Yeah,
But you know,
that's a good point.
like
You've
you
got to
killed off
respect those
one.
characters. While if you as I think that they were probably right, they do need new characters to maybe carry more movies and maybe add interesting things. But you cannot disrespect what came before.
Yeah, I mean I agree with you there, but like as you said, like, and we'll get to this in the wrestling portion of the podcast later, but like you can't just like completely get rid of like the veteran characters if you want to, you know, like get the new ones popular or get people talking about the new characters. Like you can have them play off each other in a way that, you know, they naturally pass the torch and advance while still advancing the storyline. You can absolutely do that. You don't have to like kill one and then completely replace the other.
Yeah,
Like you
it's one of
can
those
just
things
have
you
John
can have
Connor
your
turn
cake and
into
you
like
can
some
have your
sort of
cake and
like,
eat it, but they don't seem to
yeah,
understand that.
like you can have John Connor turn into like some sort of like time traveling nomad guy that just like follows Terminators
Well,
through time and
my
kills
idea
them.
was that
Like you could totally do that,
if
and
if
then
they
that
weren't
just
too
like
big on having John, yeah,
removes him. So like sure he could just like show up here and there in like future movies, absolutely.
yeah, that was my mindset that if they wanted to have a new character, a female character, be the centerpiece of Dark Fate, that John Connor could still be there. He could be a smaller character that is talked about, but then shows up at the end of that movie and helps out our Arnold Schwarzeneggers, our Linda Hamiltons, and that means that everybody gets what they want. If the directors want fresh new characters, maybe a female character, they can have that. And the fans that don't want to see their favorite characters getting, removed, get what they want. But it's, I think that's a big thing with Terminator is that I don't feel like they know what fans liked, and you listen to James Cameron. I think he's fascinated with his Avatar movies, and I don't think well, obviously he wasn't on. He said he wasn't on set nearly at all for Terminator Dark Fate, so he didn't really care about that movie at all. Which
Yeah, like at this stage, I think the franchise is just in the bin for him, and he's just like moved on.
yeah,
It's just like, okay, well, you can do your own thing, but I'm like completely disowning everything you do in this future timeline. So like you can do your own thing and completely separate it from the project.
yeah,
Which, I can understand, like if he's disappointed or like anything from like what they've done since he left the franchise, and like only just came back in like a consultancy role. Like I'm sure he had like plenty of useful input into like where to bring the series or what direction they move in. But when they're writing these movies from one to the next, they're not writing with anything long term in mind, and you can tell that
yeah.
because if they had something in mind for like 2 or 3 movies down the line, they would build for that. They would make that into a big moment. They wouldn't just throw away the killing of John Connor in the first 5 minutes of a movie. Like they would build up to that and like have him in like a much grandiose fight and have him lose, and then that sets up the cliffhanger for another movie,
Yeah.
which would be the redemption arc for like whoever is going to avenge his death.
I mean, I think
It doesn't make sense.
there's a quote that sums up this all great, terrifically. I think Tim Miller, who directed the last movie, he said that he didn't want John Connor to be around because it's like he spoke about him like he was a distracting sort of relative that you just didn't want to have around at a wedding. He's like, we got to get rid of him, so the new characters don't have to be overshadowed by him, which is such a bizarre mindset. I mean, it's kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the new movie only shows up for the last 40 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, is another decision. That you've maybe that was kind of understandable if you wanted to give him a smaller part, but again, he shows himself. I mean, if you're into wrestling, larger than life, older stars that are still popular. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the best thing about the last three movies. And I think obviously he's getting older now. I mean, if they do make a movie in 5 years, he probably won't be able to be in it. But I think his loss to the franchise is a big chunk of it, because I think he was a big part of the personality. His just general kind of presence in movies is terrific. I would always say if Arnold Schwarzenegger is able to be in a Terminator movie, he should be in it if it makes sense and if it's possible. But yeah, I think in the future we're going to talk about how you could reboot Terminator. But I think unless you want to say anything else, JC, we'll go on to the next subject.